Hi everyone, I'm here to share a tool with you that I've been toying with for the last decade, I guess, in some ways, and then it sort of evolved in the last couple of weeks to something new, and I wanted to share it with you. The first impetus was talking to so many people who are experiencing very difficult emotions because of COVID-19 and this new reality that we're living through, and sort of as a, like I mentioned in my other video, sort of seeing that so many people are plateauing and I would say giving up, but sort of succumbing to dark feelings, let's call it that way. And as somebody who is definitely intensely emotional, tending on the darker side of things, been there, done that, I can totally relate, and I wanted to offer this tool. So yeah, so that's part one. Part two, you're all going to laugh, but Noom, the diet app. I need to lose some weight after some serious winter snacking that was going on, and a friend of mine who did wonderfully on the app suggested it, and so I embarked on, I think it was in January. And this is, I'm not paid by Noom, so there's no sponsorship here, but I learned so much, and not so much because of the diet tips, but because of the way the app was organized. And what do I mean by that? You have to check in every day and you see your progression because you're weighing yourself every day. And at the beginning I thought, like, really, every day? That seems a bit excessive and annoying. But really, was the one thing that was keeping me accountable and sort of giving me a clear picture of what's the truth. Did we lose weight or did we not lose weight? And the fact that you do it on a daily basis for me was pivotal. It really changed something in my perception. So it was two things. It was seeing the graph going down and having to be accountable every day, and sort of realizing that a lot of the stuff that I was doing during the day in terms of my eating was unconscious. I'm eating a granola bar, so what? 200 calories. And if you're have to adhere to a strict calorie count of, let's say, 1500 or 1600, those 200 calories were half of dinner. You get what I'm saying. So the idea that you had somewhere that you had to be held accountable, and you had to look, I apologize for the sirens, really helped me change my perception. So those two things. So I've been working with this tool. Let's wait for a second. Wish that person well. Yeah. So I've been working with this tool in my teaching in music. I wrote my doctorate on emotions in music, and this tool was developed to help the performer understand what the conflict in the music is and how to modulate between different emotions, how to switch moods. I hate to admit it, but it never even occurred to me to take this tool and to try to apply it to real life. I don't know why. Maybe it had to percolate all this time, but I'm here to share it with you now. So let's just very quickly go through what this is. So what you do is you basically draw a circle, and if you're really curious, you can go on my music channel, and there's a long video there about how to do the emotional analysis of music, and I go into more detail about what this is, but just know that exists. So you draw a circle, and as you can see, above the middle line is positive emotions, below the middle line is negative emotions. And what you do is that you start logging, depending on your schedule and how much time you have, you start logging in entries. So that might look something like this. Let's say you woke up in the morning, this is the beginning, not feeling so great, you didn't sleep so great, you're feeling a little dark, usually me. Then you have your morning coffee and you meditate and you do some cards and you see the sun and pet a cat and you're feeling a little bit better. And then you go about your day, and for me, you go practice and you do some work and you feel good about yourself, and then something happens. And I'll give you a few examples in a second, but something happens that take you from that good mood and sends you down. Maybe you listen to the news, maybe you got some, a bad email about work, maybe, you fought with a friend, something happened that changes your mood. And this is where I think this tool becomes really incredible, because you see the trajectory of the line. You see where you started, where you went, how you fell, and you can start adding to these dots. You could add the time of day, you can add a description of what exactly the mood was. I like to think about what was the activity that got me to the next thing. Like, what was the thing? I discovered that water, just drinking water in the morning, because we probably wake up dehydrated, that water changes my mood by a lot in that first hour of being awake. I never knew that. I knew it was important to drink water in the morning, but I didn't realize it had a direct effect on my mood. That was something new. So you basically see how this is done, and maybe this is a good time to say there is really no right way or wrong way of doing it. If you just logged in one part of this line throughout the day, or you log the entire day in detail, it's totally up to you. I think the more specific you are, the more layers and understanding and awareness you're going to have. But that's not to say that there is no value in just saying or meditating or thinking of what happened throughout the day and saying, oh yeah, that was a big drop. What happened there? Did I recover from that? And you get my point. If you really want to take it to the next layer, or to the next level, I should say, you can then start looking at the underneath layers of moving from one state into the other. So what does that mean? It means that the first part of the day, things were going sort of okay, so you were in an okay general mood for that day, and then from the afternoon and on, something not so good happened and you're now in the darker. So it's not just the events themselves, but the undertone of the whole thing. Maybe a more inner layer or more general layer that you're logging in. Hopefully that made sense. So I guess, why do I think that this is helpful? I think I said why I think it's helpful, but what changed for me is, again, because of all the things that I listed before, is that to be able to see these lines and how they move back and forth really reinforced the point that no emotion is static. No matter how firmly you believe that you're only going to experience, gloom and doom for the rest of the day, you will have fluctuations. You'll have a fluctuation with that glass of water. You'll have a fluctuation, seeing something funny on YouTube. You will have things fluctuating through the day. And if you allow that fluctuation, you now have more control and more ease navigating your line. So here's some points I want to share. Point number one is being honest with yourself. And so things like, I used to think that I wake up every morning in a really, really, really dark mood. That is not true. There are different levels of that dark mood. There are some mornings I wake up really dark, and there's some mornings that I'm actually okay. So I had to challenge that myth about myself, thinking that, I always wake up grumpy. Not true. Another myth that I had to confront is that if, something bad happened, then I would get stuck in that mood, and seeing that graph going down, and let's say there was an email from work that got me really upset, and seeing how low I dropped and saying like, oh, do I really want to stay here because of an email from work? Really? Let's do something fun. Let's go for a walk. Let's go practice. That was a huge one. I know I love to practice. I actually never realized how high practice gets me. So already all the things that I mentioned, for me, this is a reason to keep on going and doing it. And let's face it, it's annoying. Like carrying a notebook, or we'll talk about how different ways of doing it. It takes some commitment. Maybe somebody will help me design an app to make life easier for all of us, but it takes some commitment. But the rewards of logging things in and seeing the progression, I think it's fantastic. Um, yeah, I mentioned the fluctuations. Yeah, another realization. Every day is different, and you go like, duh, of course, but not of course. We think, yeah, it was okay. Yeah, it was okay. Well, that day was really, but literally every day the graph is doing something different, and there's some days that the graph was very erratic, and there's some days that the graph started low and then even out. And again, I don't know why that makes me excited, but it does make me excited. The specificity of what's happening in the emotional curve every day is fascinating to me, and especially I think especially for those of us who are dealing with tendency for depression and to darkness, to see those different fluctuations is really important. Yeah, you would think that the goal is to keep the line above the middle, right? Let's all stay positive. Let's stay all as high as possible. Let's stay in a joyful mood throughout the day. That's the goal. It isn't. The most interesting days for me were the days that I went down and then I went back up. Those are the days for me that I've experienced something that I learned from, and that the day was interesting, and I wouldn't say I had fun, but interesting. The days that it plateaus on we're doing okay, not so interesting. Who knew? So I'm not saying, go and create catastrophes just so you have a wave. No, not at all. But I'm saying that there is a point for the fluctuation between the up and down, and what we learn from that fluctuation, and just the insistence on keeping everything above the middle line, that everything is going to be hanky-dory and rainbows and unicorns. That's a problem in itself, and the graph will show you that. It's like, I'm trying to stay there, and then I really get angry when the line. You will learn your reaction to your own moves, and how incredible is that? Yeah, the sudden falls. I think for me those were the most dangerous, because the sudden falls. I'll give you an example. I was practicing. I was having a really, really great time, and I leave the door for where I practice, and there's a homeless person sitting like right in front of the door, which is literally inside the building, coughing. And of course the first thought is, oh my God, this man is sick, I need to call an ambulance. And I won't bore you with the details, but I went from high on practice to, oh my God, humanity is collapsing. I managed to resolve that situation. He was fine. He actually was not sick. He was faking it, but that's a whole different video. And I balanced myself up. And then an hour later, there's an incident with a client about payment. I made what I thought was a mistake that cost me some serious money. And of course, I got very upset at myself. So the line drops pretty low. Within half an hour, the situation was resolved, but I had to wait a lot longer for the line to go up, and there was no money loss. It was fine. I was still down there with the, oh my God, I made a mistake, and thank God it got resolved, but I could not forgive myself or absolve myself and let myself go back to the cheering mode I was 4 hours before when I was high on practice. So again, several things. Those drops are going to happen. 2, you see how you get stuck in them. 3, you give yourself the option of climbing back up from them and taking a different position. The perspective helps you to take a different position emotionally. Hopefully that made sense. Another interesting thing, there's always, when you reach those higher states of, let's say, that high from I had a really great practice session and I felt like really good and I like the way it sounds, and then the day progresses, it will go down, and there's a feeling of depression that comes because it's going down. But it's not really depression, it's just that it's not as high as what you got to 2 hours earlier. It's just naturally calming down, and I have to accept that natural calming down. It's not below the middle line, it's just a down feeling. Think about that. Yeah, I think that's really what I want to say about all of this. obviously, I'm not a therapist and I'm not a psychologist, and I'm talking to you from the experience of a sensitive person who has been doing these graphs for many, many years for music, and for the last couple of weeks for myself. And I find them to be, for music, I know 100% that they're incredible, and I'm starting to find that they're also incredible for us on a daily basis. I think I mentioned it can be as detailed as you want it to be. It doesn't. We live in such a crazy life where there's constant demands on our time. So I'm not expecting everybody to drop what they're doing and every couple of hours to log in the emotion. You could do it in whichever way works for you. You can. One option is to wait till after the day is over and then log in retrospect and go, okay, well, the morning was fine, and then that happened and that happened, and see how the graph moves. Another option is to use an app. There is Keep Track. It's an Android app. There's also something close to what I'm suggesting here in an app called Peas, P-E-A-S. And of course, this is not new. People have been logging emotions and talking about their moods and have all of these elaborate systems. This system is a little different. That the whole point is to see the graph, the connection between the points. But yeah, so you can use an app to log. You can use notes on your phone to just say what the mood is at a certain time and then log it later. You can carry a notebook. You can do it on a post-it note and put the post-it note on what you're carrying with you. So there are different ways of doing it, and there is no right way, and please be creative. I'm now at the point that I'm starting to think that I can just do it in my head. If I sort of have a corner in my brain that says what the mood is and where did the graph go, I think I can now do it without actually writing out. But if you're starting off, I think that the writing actually serves a huge purpose, just to see that motion up and down and the flexibility of the line. Yeah, I think that's it. I wrote it and I think I was wrong in what I wrote. I think you could be as specific, and that would give you certain advantages, and I think you could be general, and that will give you certain things. If you're too busy to start logging in, at 8:15 I was blah blah blah, of course it's not going to work for you. But if you're willing to take every day as a different sort of graph, some days it's going to be specific, some days it's going to be very general, and just see what information comes from doing it, I think you will learn a lot. And I'm curious, maybe you have different ideas, or you have, if you tried out, what your experience is with this. So leave me comments below and ask questions, and I will make more videos because I think there are implications to what you could do with this in other areas, so we'll leave that to other videos. Yes, enough. See you next time. Bye.